I was 22 years old, attending a Halloween party at my former best friend Declan's house. He died of a heroin overdose in 2013. Before his death, he threw grand Halloween parties every year at his place, as his parents routinely flew to New York to attend their own friend's party. Declan was a Halloween enthusiast, so the entire house was decked out with truly horrifying props. We all knew he spent far too much money on them. He even erected giant cardboard walls, covered them with wallpaper, and created a haunted maze. To keep this story PG-13, I'll skip the weed, beer else, and sex, and jump to the moment things turned grim. I'll admit, we weren't in our right minds, none of us were. Anyone who attended Declan's parties knew what went down. Declan, me, and a few other guys, Liam, Tommy, and Scene, were upstairs in Declan's room, smoking a bong, when we heard two loud, steady bangs from downstairs. Declan, clumsy but panicked, rushed to open the door and see what was happening. Screams of both guys and girls echoed. I vividly recall it sounding like a crowd screaming for their lives. We called Declan back to shut the door. Even under the influence, we knew what was happening. Declan darted back inside, quietly locking the door. His face looked like he'd witnessed a murder. "What did you see? What's going on?" we shouted. He told us to hide without hesitation. We understood why and didn't ask questions. Declan hit the lights and hid in the closet with Tommy, while I slid under the bed with Scene, and Liam hid in a storage box. The blasting music downstairs stopped, followed by a grown man yelling at everyone to shut up. One unfortunate girl let out a scream of shock and fear, and after another bang, silence fell. The man shouted again, but I couldn't hear clearly, and I certainly wouldn't recall his exact words. We heard two more men shouting. 3 confirmed intruders in the house, possibly more. Boots stomped up the stairs, stopping halfway down the hall outside the bedroom door. The intruder tried the doorknob, but finding it locked, he rammed the door, likely with his shoulder. After a few failed attempts, shots fired at the doorknob broke the lock, and the door swung open. Cries from downstairs followed the shots, then silence and another gunshot. Scene and I covered our mouths to muffle our breathing. Through the transparent cloth hanging from Declan's bed, I watched black boots with tattered denim jeans move toward the closet. The intruder opened it, and I heard Declan begging, offering a hefty sum if they'd leave. Declan revealed he owned the house. The intruder ordered him downstairs. The rest of us stayed put. Apparently, Tommy wasn't caught with Declan. We remained under the bed trembling. Near silence came from downstairs, except for Declan talking with the intruders, but their words were too faint to hear. After what felt like 20 minutes, the front door slammed shut. Declan ran upstairs, saying they were gone. The most horrifying moment of my life was stepping into the living room and seeing 2 lifeless bodies on the ground, bullet holes in their heads, blood pooling. Oif and Cunner, 2 dear friends I still miss. I'll spare the details of the police arrival. But despite the house reeking of marijuana, they focused on identifying the masked men who killed 2 innocent college students. Declan told the 4 of us hiding in his room that there were 4 intruders, all wearing fedoras, vendetta masks, coats, and gloves. They demanded $100,000 in cash. When Declan couldn't provide it, they forced him to fill a sack with his most valuable possessions. Partygoers, held hostage, tossed their wallets into the sack. After the incident, Declan spiraled into depression. Drinking heavily and becoming an alcoholic, he stopped attending school, dropped out, and turned to harder drugs like meth and heroin. I had one heartfelt talk with him post-incident. With tears streaming and a pipe in hand, he said he lived in constant pain, knowing he caused the deaths of 2 close friends. Declan died of a heroin overdose in July 2013, not even a year after the incident. It was my first Halloween living in my own house, away from my parents. I live in a small corner house with a basement but no upstairs, a place my parents helped pay for. It was 11 at night, and I was in the living room watching scary Halloween movies when I got up to answer a knock at the door. Then I paused, wondering who could be knocking at 11 p.m. Surely no trick or treaters were out this late. I had a hunch it was a late night Halloween ding-dong ditcher, so I waited a moment, glanced at the porch through the window and saw they were gone. Yep, ding-dong ditchers. I sat back down, not thinking much of it, until the knocking came again. "Get lost," I yelled, not in the mood for punk kids. They ignored me and started pounding, not just knocking. Furious, I leaped up and swung the door open. Nobody was there. I slipped on my shoes and searched outside, checking the bushes behind my car and across the street. No one. I was done playing their game, so I went back inside, locked the door, and locked my bedroom door for extra safety. Even over the TV, I could hear the relentless pounding on the front door. I was tempted to call the cops but worried that lead to my house being egged or toilet papered. The pounding went on for over 30 minutes. I thought these kids must be filming for YouTube, desperate for a reaction, but I wouldn't give in. At some point, I dozed off with the TV on, only to wake to knocking again. The clock read 2 in the morning. How could they still be at it? I turned off the TV and listened. My heart stopped when I realized the knocking wasn't at the front door, but at my bedroom door. I jumped out of bed, frantically searching for a weapon. They knew I was awake, trying the doorknob and attempting to bust the door down. These weren't kids. In a flash of desperation, I turned on my speaker system's receiver, plugged in my iPhone, opened YouTube, searched for a 45 gunshot sound effect, cranked the volume, and played it. The gunshot echoed. I paused after the first shot and yelled, "That was a warning shot! Leave now, or I won't hesitate to shoot you in the head." It worked. I heard 2 pairs of footsteps stomping across my wood floors and out the front door. I waited a moment, then opened my bedroom door and peeked out. They were gone, but the front door was wide open. I quickly shut it, called the police, and that's where my story ends. I was never a big Halloween person, mostly because I grew up with few friends. After age 10, I couldn't use the excuse of going trick or treating with my mom, and I didn't have friends to join. Last Halloween I was 14. I have a little sister, only 8, so my mom went trick or treating with her. My one close friend, Owen, had plans and I didn't want to intrude, so it seemed I wouldn't be trick or treating. A tiny spark of joy hit when my mom asked me to stay home and hand out candy. I felt like I had a purpose, not trick or treating alone like a loser. Mom left with my sister around 6, an hour after getting home from work, saying she'd be back by 9. I relaxed on the living room couch, watching a scary movie marathon on Amps, occasionally answering the door to give candy to kids. Then the kitchen phone rang, its loud ringer startling me. I picked up, but the other end was silent except for faint fumbling and background noise, like someone holding the phone. I said, "Hello," about 5 times before they hung up. I figured it was a Halloween prank call and ignored it. That worked for a few minutes while I watched TV and answered the door, until the phone rang again. The same unknown number appeared on caller ID. Curious, I picked up. This time I heard faint breathing. "All right, Owen, I know it's you," I said. They hung up. I wasn't scared, but I was uneasy. It was a while before the phone rang again. It was later darker, and the doorbell rang less frequently. I was watching the original Friday the 13th when the phone rang, its sound now sickening. I gave in and picked up. Silence, just faint breathing and fumbling. After nearly 30 seconds, a deep, exaggerated voice said, "I'll be paying you a visit tonight." Fed up, I told them to get lost and hung up, vowing not to answer again. About 30 minutes later, the house's power cut out. Lights went off, the TV died. Complete darkness. I stood, frozen in fear, as loud, angry thumping hit the front door. I lost it, screaming, but then heard laughter outside. I recognized it. I opened the door, and there was Owen. I shoved him, nearly knocking him down the steps. "So that was you making those dumb calls?" I asked. He nodded, laughing. "It didn't sound like you on the phone." "Do that voice again," I said. He looked confused. "I didn't say anything, you idiot. I just called and did the heavy breathing." I thought he was lying, but then my heart sank. I had him follow me to the fuse box outside. As feared, it was opened, and the wires were snipped. We ran back inside faster than Olympic sprinters. I called my mom, who told us to stay put and wait for the police, whom she called. The call traced to a payphone outside a nearby bar. I still wonder if it was a dumb Halloween prank gone too far or a potential break-in with worse intentions. I don't think I want to find out. When I was younger, my friends and I went trick or treating every year. One year, as we trick or treated, we passed a man standing still, wearing a mask and holding a lantern. As we walked by, he turned his whole body, following us with his eyes. We were creeped out, but with plenty of people around, we moved to the next house. We saw him repeatedly as we went from house to house, seemingly following us. In classic horror story fashion, we walked so slowly we couldn't figure out how he kept up. At one house, after not seeing him for a while, we got our candy. Turning to head back to the street, we saw the masked man standing in the road, waiting. We immediately knocked on the door again and told the homeowners. The masked man continued down the street, and we didn't see him again that night. Later, an adult family friend said he saw a masked man hiding behind a tree, waving kids over, only backing off when threatened with police. I was trick or treating with my friend Mason, both 11 at the time. We were crossing a small wooden bridge over a river locals call Willow Creek when a black Jeep pulled up on the other side, blocking our path. We turned and hurried away, following stranger danger rules. We heard the Jeep's windows roll down, and a man with a raspy smoker's voice called us back, yelling for help with directions. I shouted, "Sorry," and we kept moving. The Jeep couldn't cross the narrow bridge, so it drove down the road on the other side. We thought we'd escaped when it barreled around the corner, slamming on its brakes in front of us. The driver rolled down the windows, revealing two passengers. An old man with gray curly hair and a mustache in the back, also with a raspy voice, told us to get in, offering free candy bags. The Jeep made a 3-point turn and tailed us. At one point, it sped past, stopped, and the front and back passenger doors opened. Two creepy men stepped out, lunging at us. We dropped our candy bags and ran straight for my house, now in sight. We rang the doorbell at least 20 times. The men chasing us couldn't run fast and turned back when they saw us reach my house. My mom opened the door, and we screamed, pointing at the Jeep backing away. She shoved us inside, locked the door, and called the police. She reported a black Jeep with 3 older men, raspy voices, and our descriptions. Mom was frantic all night, worried they knew where we lived. Dad tried to calm her, but she couldn't relax. The police sent an unmarked car to guard our house for 3 hours, which helped a bit. What truly eased us was when Dad woke us to see flashing red and blue lights outside. The unmarked car had pulled over in a black Jeep, with 3 men in cuffs, the creeps who tried to kidnap Mason and me. Dad spoke to the officer, likely confirming their identities. Mason and I went to the doorway, screamed to get the men's attention, and flipped them off. Mom pulled us back, shut the door, and sent us to bed. It went from the worst night of our lives to the best. This story happened on Halloween night. I took my 7-year-old daughter Emma trick-or-treating for a few hours. When we returned, I cooked dinner, we watched TV, and I sent her to bed. I was exhausted, so I brushed my teeth and went to sleep soon after. Emma entered my room, saying someone was in her closet. I assured her no one was there and that she didn't need to sleep with me. She reluctantly returned to her room and shut the door. I noted that if she came back, I'd show her the closet was empty. 5 minutes later, she returned. I asked why she thought someone was there. She said she heard movement and things falling. Her words made my heart skip. I walked her to her room, turned on the lights, and jokingly asked, "Is anybody in there?" We listened, expecting nothing. Then, a thud came from the closet. I yelled at Emma to run to the neighbors and call the police. As she did, I swung the closet door open and found the neighbor's son, Ethan, sitting on Emma's Lego box. I grabbed him by the shirt collar and yanked him up, marching him angrily to his parents' house next door. Emma was ringing their doorbell. When they answered, I shoved Ethan inside, right into his father, and explained everything. I said I wouldn't press charges, but if I caught him near Emma again, they'd regret it. Ethan's dad, Greg, slapped him and asked me to come inside so Ethan could explain. Emma and I went in. Apparently, while I was trick-or-treating with Emma, Ethan snuck into our house through an open window and hid in her closet with his friend Noah. I asked if Noah was still in my house. Ethan said yes. I told Emma to stay with Greg while I ran back. As I entered, there was Noah, shadier looking than Ethan, holding Emma's underwear. In fatherly rage, I grabbed him by the throat, threw him to the floor, slapped him 4 times, and let him leave. I didn't call the police because of my friendship with Greg, but I made it clear that if they ever approached Emma again, they'd be in trouble. We went to sleep, with Emma in my bed, horrified. The next morning, I found a small drill hole in her closet door. Those sick kids were spying on her while she slept, also handling her underwear. You might not grasp the horror unless you're a parent, but I often think I should have called the police. I still could, but nothing has happened since, so I avoid stirring trouble. Emma's 13 now, and Ethan has gone to college. We had just moved into our large new house in Mississauga, Ontario, in an area called Winston Churchill. It was Halloween night and my parents, 4 sisters, brother, and I were unpacking in our new bedrooms. We finished and were discussing leaving our old schools and friends behind. My mother called us for chores. I was exhausted since it was 11:30 at night, past the trick-or-treating buzz, and chores felt endless. When done, I went to my bedroom to sleep. I heard footsteps in the upstairs hallway. Thinking it was my brother or sister, I got up to yell at them for disturbing me, but no one was there. I rushed to the basement where my parents, sister, and brother were working and asked if anyone had been upstairs. They said no. Freaked out, I convinced myself it was my imagination and shrugged it off. I returned to my bed, now freezing, and put on a sweater. I woke around 12:30 a.m. after everyone was asleep, hearing loud banging from my parents' bedroom. I thought it was my brother or sister, scared to get water alone. But I was wrong. The banging grew louder. Unable to sleep, I checked it out. In the hallway, no one was there, and the banging stopped as I approached. I stared at the door briefly before returning to bed. Minutes later, the banging resumed. Chilled to the bone, I tried to sleep but couldn't. My bedroom door creaked open, as if lightly pushed, but it was too dark to see. "Hey, what are you doing? Who is it?" "Let me sleep," I said. Light footsteps approached my bed. I thought it was a sister until I turned and saw a figure, at least 7 feet tall, beside my bed. I choked back a scream. Nothing came out. I lay in horror as the figure said, "Boo." I screamed at the top of my lungs and covered my eyes. My parents burst in, flicked on the light, and the figure was gone. I cried, explaining the thumping and the figure. My siblings watched from the doorway as I freaked out. I asked my parents if they heard the knocking on their door. It was their door after all. They said no. They looked at me like I was crazy, but I know I'm not. You can't imagine something that real. I'll never forget that night. It was a few years ago, Halloween night. We were all 20, at that age where haunted house attractions are a highlight. The attraction, called Scarehouse Journey to the Basement or something, ran for 4 years in our town, then vanished. This was its 4th and final year. It was a high-quality, terrifying haunted house, one of the best I've been to. It wasn't a guided tour but a group exploration maze. The only way out was reaching the basement, finding a key, and unlocking the exit door. Unique, for sure. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good night for us. We started in the living room, with a giant open coffin in the center, convincing spiderwebs in every corner, dusty antique furniture, and blood-stained creaky wood floors. We knew it'd be great. The dining room was next, where things got creepy. Subsequent rooms were dimly lit by artificial lanterns on walls. Actors in horrifyingly realistic costumes jumped out, startling me every time. We spent ages going in circles, as the house was a maze with many rooms and fake doors. It took forever to find the basement door, and I was nervous to descend. It was pitch black down there, making us think it was an employee-only prop storage area. Cell phones were banned, so we couldn't use their screens as lights. We had no choice but to go down. Each step creaked worse than nails on a chalkboard. We laughed, admitting how freaked out we were. I reached out in the darkness, bumped into someone, and apologized, asking who it was, expecting a friend. No answer. Whoever it was put a hand on my shoulder. I ran, screaming and laughing, disturbed by being in that vast, dark basement with someone else there. A friend found a key on a desk in the corner. We raced upstairs to the light, found the exit door, and escaped. The process was much longer than my story suggests. Outside the exit was a bin with a sign, "Drop keys here, please." Staff collected keys to return to the basement. Halfway off the premises, the exit door opened, and a tall person in a black robe and bloody pig mask stepped out, following us. Likely a male staff member. He kept pace as we walked away from the attraction. A friend called out, "We don't have the key if that's what you want. We dropped it in the bin." It didn't stop him. Jokingly, we ran to see if he would, and he did. We stopped, and so did he. At first, it was funny, maybe a prank, but as we neared my friend Oliver's house, we debated revealing where he lived. He'd followed us for at least 5 blocks. If it was a joke, it had gone too far. Oliver's parents were home, so we felt safe going inside. His front door was broken, so we went to the backyard, shutting the gate. Wiping our feet on the welcome mat, we heard the gate open. The man emerged from the house's side, walking faster toward us. Oliver opened the back door, calling for his dad to get his gun. This got the masked man's attention. He slowed, turned to face Oliver, and Oliver's dad emerged, furious, aiming a pistol. The man raised his hands, pleading not to be shot, saying he was only 27. Oliver's dad told him to leave and never return, or he wouldn't hesitate to shoot. I wish he'd made the guy remove the mask and called the police. He got off too easily and could have been armed. We contacted the haunted house, and they said they had no employee in a pig mask,